restless. I am so restless. And this changing world leaves me speechless. I am lost for words, but I kept my nerve.
Welcome to the TheFallenState. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. I believe that if we don't restore families, then America's over. Forget it, nothing's gonna work. I have with me Ken and Annmarie Harbaugh, author of a new book on parenting, Here Be Dragons. Thank you guys for being here.
Great to be here.
How long have you guys been married, Ken?
Boy, quiz question.
I'm not bailing him out. He needs to know.
We've been married
right.
going on, married in 98, so going on 18 years.
I often wonder why men marry certain women. You know, you date around, and finally you meet that one woman, and you say, this is the one. What was it that made you decide, this is the one?
I knew pretty quickly after meeting her that this was the girl I was going to marry, which is funny because her first impression upon meeting me was that she would never marry me.
Really?
But I won. I won. And I think I was drawn to her because of her independence. I always respected that about her. I always respected the fact that I wanted a partner who I felt challenged me.
Challenge you in what way?
Challenged me to become a better person, to be the best person I can be. But I think
give me a couple examples of things that she would do to you to challenge you. She does
I
what?
will. I was a Navy pilot, and she supported me through that. She not only supported me, but she understood when I went away. I now work for a disaster relief organization, and she supports me in that, and with the kids especially, is very helpful in explaining why it's important that dad goes to a Syrian refugee camp, or that dad deploys to the Philippines in the aftermath of a storm. These things are important not only to satisfy my own service instincts, but to set an example for each other and for our kids.
I noticed you call her your partner. She's not your wife?
Of course she's my wife.
Why do you say partner?
I say partner because in our parenting philosophy, we parent as a team.
When you call her your partner, you're not concerned that sounds like the homosexual marriage? Because they came up with that word partner in order to get normal society to accept them as a norm. And
well,
so now I hear straight guy family.
Yeah, well, I'm straight.
Do you know it sounds like you're talking about you may have a husband or something?
It might, but I actually have no issue with that. I was at an event just a couple nights ago with a very good gay friend of mine, and I fully support their right to love whoever they want. And if my use of the word partner grates on some people's ears, that's more on them than on me.
Are you a Christian?
Yes.
You are a Christian? And you accept homosexuality as a norm?
I do.
You do, okay. And what attracted you to Ken? What, all the men in the world, and he said you didn't really think he was the one at first.
We were always good friends. From the very first moment we met, we went on trips together. I'll tell you what we did a lot was we argued. We would sit and talk issues and talk about meaningful, substantive things. You go out with a lot of boys and you talk about football.
What made it difficult? Why did it take a while to decide this was the one, though? He was the one.
Oh, I always had boyfriends.
Oh, you have?
He had to get in line.
Oh, I see. And of all the guys you were dating, he turned out to be the best choice for you?
Yeah, he made a bet. I'm not going to lie to you. He made a bet. Was it a lobster dinner?
Lobster dinner with your best
He
friend.
bet someone a lobster dinner that he could get me to go out on a date with him.
Really?
But he didn't tell me about the lobster dinner.
Right.
My college roommate had a really beautiful sweater. I loved that sweater. And so I borrowed it without asking and spilled a drink on it. And then I put it back. And she found it later. She said, Annmarie, did you borrow my sweater? And I said, yes, I did. And she said, that's not right. And I said, you're right. How can I make it up to you? And she said, I need a ride home. And I said, sweetheart, I do not have a car. She said, I know, but Ken does. I need a ride home. We were in college, and I said, well, get him to take you. And she said, I asked him, and he said, no, but he would take me home if you came too. And along the way, as you do on road trips, something about talking to people when you don't have to look at them, you confess, you go deep. And it was right about then that the lightning struck, and I thought, I've been walking side by side with this gem of a person somewhere in Tennessee, I think, between North Carolina and Kansas.
What a ride, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you a Christian?
I am.
He called you his partner instead of his wife.
Yes.
Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
And why is that?
Because we are partners. I do the laundry sometimes. He does the laundry sometimes. We are both parents, and we both have a household, and we both have jobs. I think we share those burdens.
And the fact that when you say partner, it implies that it's a homosexual couple. Does that bother you at all?
Homosexual couples do not bother me at all, and the label partner for anyone doesn't bother me at all, no.
Because you realize they came up with that, right? In order to make normal society, or attempt to make normal society accept them or their lifestyle as a norm. You do realize that, right?
I think this might be a point upon which we disagree, and I'm okay with that. I think that folks loving each other and using the words that they do to express that love is fine by me.
You believe that homosexual love is love?
I do.
You do?
I do.
And Ken, do you believe that homosexual sex is love?
I'm with my wife and partner, Annmarie, on this. And at the risk of preaching to a preacher, I abide by the instruction to judge not, lest you be judged.
And so you never judge?
It depends on the situation. I'll judge ISIS. I've seen what they have done, but I'm not going to judge my gay friends for entering into a committed, loving relationship with their partners.
Is when you tell a person that they are wrong, are you judging them then?
I guess it depends on why you're telling them they're wrong. I think there are some moral absolutes. I think cruelty is universally wrong, and I have no problem not only telling ISIS that they're wrong for their cruelty, but joining the Navy and fighting cruelty and bullying where I find it.
Am I wrong for saying that homosexuality is wrong, and that it's something that you can overcome because it's due to a spiritual trauma? And so I would rather see them overcome it rather than go along with it being wrong and allowing them to suffer the rest of their lives with it, because they can overcome it. It's not something they're stuck in.
I think you're entitled to your own opinion,
Absolutely.
but if you're asking me, I do think you're wrong.
You do?
But I'd
So
be
are
okay
you
to talk to
judging
you
me by
about that.
saying that I'm wrong?
Yeah, I am.
So you do judge?
Sure, absolutely.
And do you think I'm wrong too?
I think as a intellectual matter, you're wrong, but you're not wrong to have your own opinions. You have every right to have your own opinions. And I think the exchange of ideas and the ideological battleground is one of the hallmarks of liberal society and American democracy, and you don't see it in places like the Middle East, which I've spent plenty of time. You don't see it in places like Putin's Russia.
So are
Here
you
at
judging
least.
me for intellectually being wrong about it?
Yes,
You
yeah,
are.
intellectually, but
And
not.
so is it okay that you judge me intellectually for being wrong?
Sure, I'm also.
You saying sure it is okay?
Well, let me explain why. I'm also, in the past, have been an assistant professor of naval history. If I engage in a conversation with a student of mine or a colleague over the import of the Battle of Lake Champlain, and I know either facts or have experiences that can add value to that conversation, I can judge them to be intellectually wrong about their analysis. I'm judging, I don't know you well, but from what little I've discerned in this exchange, I'm judging you to be intellectually wrong, not morally on a different plane, but intellectually wrong about this particular argument.
You've written that you got married too young. Tell us about that.
Well, I was 22 when Ken asked me to marry him, and I had my first job and my first apartment and my first toaster, and I was on my own for the very first time in my life.
Yeah.
I just wasn't ready to get married. But what do you do when the person you love, the person you want to marry, asks you before you're ready? I think you just say yes, comma, but can we wait a little bit? And so we had a long, thoughtful engagement. We waited a few years, but not so long that I think he would ever feel like I was having second thoughts. But I also had a very important commitment. I had committed myself to a children's organization where they had asked me to work for 2 years. I was working with delinquent, troubled kids in the Florida juvenile justice system, and one of the precepts of that program was, these are kids for whom adults have come into their lives and adults have walked out. Adults have said, I will be there for you, and then they weren't. And so when I signed my name to that contract, I said I would be there for 2 years and I wouldn't walk out on those kids.
Define family, because your book is about family, right? Define family for me.
Family.
Well, we can define ours, I think, pretty well. It's this partnership and our 3 kids and our extended family. My parents are still together, Anne-Marie's parents.
I've had friends that I think have chosen family.
Talk about last night. That was a real sense of family there.
We had a book event in our hometown, and folks knew that we'd written this book, and we were going to have coffee, come on out and just see us. We're in town. I lost track of the dozens and dozens of people who are friends, but who were my family. We weren't living near my mom and dad then. We weren't living near his people. These are folks who took my child when someone else was sick, who got me groceries, who I brought soup to. These are the fabric of your society that become family. And my heart weeps for folks who'd never experienced that. I think whose neighbors' doors are always shut. I think it's wonderful.
Am I hear you say that a family is a husband, wife, children, grandparents, and the neighborhood and the rest of the world?
In our case, that has been what we've been able to construct to serve as our bulwark against all the slings and arrows that might come our way, and to build that support network for our kids as well. I mean, living in LA, we lived here before we lived in Ohio. I used to think a lot about this. I had influence over my daughters for a couple hours a day. If you think about the time they spend at school, the time they spend with other people, I had a couple hours a day if I was lucky. The school had them for many more hours than that. The LA billboards and the advertisements and everything else, they had them for almost as much time and with almost as much influence. How do you build the kind of value system and support network around them that helps reinforce what you're trying to teach them? You do it with, in our case, with some nuclear family, but also with the friends that Anne-Marie was talking about.
Are you concerned about the values of this big family? Because a whole lot of folks' values are out of whack now, but they seem like nice people. Are you concerned that they could influence your children with those crazy values?
I think about it. I'll punt this one to you in a second, but I do think about it. We've been, I guess, lucky or maybe intentional in the people we have chosen to surround ourselves with, that the fundamental values, I mean, on the periphery, some things differ. Some people are Cubs fan and some are Dodgers fan, but fundamentally, we believe in the same things, which is service above self and surrounding yourself with people who bring out the best in you.
Annmarie, what is a man?
Oh dear, am I allowed to say those words on?
Yes.
I think someone with different biological parts maybe than I have.
Other than the biological part, what is a man?
I'm not very good at stereotyping. I know a lot of men. I know about the man I'm lucky enough to share a home with. He's
No, I just want to know what
tremendous.
is a man. For those who don't know, because that's a big issue in America today. Most people don't really seem to know what a man is anymore. What is a man?
Yeah, I haven't thought a lot about it. I have lived with a man for almost 20 years, and I could tell you lots about this particular man. I can tell you about my father and my grandfather and the things that were important to them. I can tell you about my brothers, but that's a lot of different men. I know he's a source of strength to me, but I know he's also a source of tenderness to me. I know that he can throw a football with my son, but he also will throw a football with my daughters. He is someone who's not afraid to kill spiders, but I tend to trap them and set them free. So I don't know if that makes either one of us any less of what you're looking for.
Is he the head of you?
No.
He's not the head of you?
He's not the boss of my applesauce. I think that it depends on the situation who's in charge. He's not the head of me, no.
You were raised by your father and mother together, right? They
I
were
was,
there.
yeah.
Was your father the head of your mother?
No, probably
No.
not.
Oh,
They were
okay.
pretty good equal partners. Depending on the situation, I think one might take the lead, and I think the same is true. The same is true for us. So.
Ken, are you the head of your wife?
Sometimes.
Sometimes? And what do you mean by that when you say sometimes?
There are situations in parenting, as in life, that require leadership, and I can point to cases where Annmarie has led me and led the family, and I can
So
point
she
to...
is your head at times?
At times, sure,
Really?
sure. Sometimes I defer to her. Sometimes I am at a loss with how to deal with our preteen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you gotta guide me here. We got an 11-year-old daughter. I never had sisters, and she's my first little girl. And yeah, a lot of times Annmarie is in the driver's seat for those decisions.
And were you raised by your father and mother?
Yes.
And was your father the head of your mother?
I think similar to Annmarie's, it varied. My dad was an Air Force pilot. He was gone some of the time, serving his country, and there were moments where my mom had to be in charge because my dad was in the military, and then there were moments where my dad was in charge.
And so what is a man?
I think one of the things we risk losing at our peril is the notion of men as defenders, not as exclusive defenders. I've seen some phenomenally strong women, but I think men need to be prepared to fight for what's right. And I think we see evil triumphing the world over because not enough good men are standing up.
And what is a woman?
I know what this woman is, but I
Would you
have
know what a woman was if you didn't know what this one was?
Probably not. I don't, presume to define that for the other 3 billion out there. But I know this woman is my wife and partner and mother to my children, and occasional leader of our family, and an incredible force for good, not only as an example for our kids, but in the wider world. She has served on the front lines of our education crisis and dropout factories with juvenile delinquents in the Florida swamps. She's an inspiration to me.
So your mother wasn't an example of what a real woman was, or is?
Sure.
So you
different,
had
but
seen a real woman prior to meeting your wife then, right?
I've seen many.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I would have a hard time shoehorning them all into one box. I've also worked alongside the most gentle, tender nurses in disaster zones who are also women. I mean, women is a pretty big category.
You mentioned the military often. In the military today, you now have men who think that they're women. They're having sex change, and you have drag queens and women who act like men, and it's a mess. Is that affecting the military for the good or the bad?
Well, I'm not sure where you're getting that it's a mess. Some of the most professional...
But is that affecting the military in a good way or a negative way?
I don't see it affecting the military.
Neither good nor negative?
No, I don't see it affecting the military. Some of the best fighters I've ever served with probably fall into the categories you've described.
Would you want to end up in a foxhole with a drag queen?
Absolutely.
With a drag queen?
Yes. If they know how to fire a gun if they know how to hold my back. Have you ever been in a foxhole, Jesse?
No.
Do you have any clue what you're talking about?
I wouldn't want to end up in a foxhole with a drag queen.
Well, I don't think you would wind up in a foxhole.
Why not?
Because you don't have the ability, it seems, to serve alongside people who are capable instead of judging them by how they dress.
No, not only how they dress.
I
it's
judge
their
my
mental-
wingman
it's their
by how
mental
they are
state of
capable.
being. A person who don't recognize who they are, if they're a man, and they in their mind they think that they're a woman, that's a mental problem. And that would concern me when I look out of that hole and see Bin Laden coming after me.
If that
he
person
wasn't-
can fire a
if
gun,
he wasn't
if that
dead.
person can protect
And
you
I'm
from
about
the
to go
enemy, I
down
don't
in
care
this
what dress
foxhole
they're
and I'm
wearing.
looking down in the hole, I see a mental person there. I'm not going to feel quite safe.
I think you're imagining a scenario based on maybe a stereotype. My guess is you don't have a lot of close friends who are transgender.
I have no transgender.
Right.
So
this is.
I have some friends who are homosexuals and trying to overcome it.
Right. So I think this is probably a good starting point when I talk to people about misconceptions about transgender people.
You don't
One
think
of the
that's a
places
mental problem?
I like to start with is, do you actually know one, or are you just, you know?
I don't need to know one to know that it's wrong, that there's a mental issue.
I think
Isn't that right,
might,
Annmarie?
I think that might be an area within which we disagree. And I like to talk about things we disagree. I think that we're living in a world right now where we have a hard time. People draw a line. I'm over here and you over there, and we never talk across it. And that, I think, is the biggest trouble of all right now, and that we're talking across it. I think we disagree on this point, but I like that we're talking about it.
Yeah, we should be able to talk, but we should also be able to disagree when we know that is wrong and not try to go along just to get along or appease someone, because these people are hurting. When you have a mental problem like that, you're confused about your gender, then that's a serious mental problem, and we need to be honest in the dialogue in order to show them how to overcome.
I guess I come in a very different perspective than you do, because I've worked with children who are crawling around inside of gender issues, and I talk to their parents. I don't think anyone at all brings this upon themselves and said, I want to struggle with my sexuality. I want to question my gender in a way that makes it so that I can't easily get along in one group or another. No one chooses that for themselves.
Right. You're right about that.
That's something that they're undergoing. But
they weren't born that way.
But listen, I mean, when we talk about Christ, Jesus walked with those among us that others wouldn't walk with. He held out his hand to people other people didn't. I mean, when you're talking about folks on the fringe of society, kids who are questioning, those are folks I want to kneel down with. I don't want to judge them. I just want to sit with them and hold their hands.
But as a Christian,
you
want to show them.
They get through.
As a Christian, you want to show them how to overcome it, right? You
No,
don't
that's
want to
not
be
my
mean
bag.
and hateful. You don't
I
want
want to love people wherever they are.
But-
I want to sit with them and break bread with them, and that's the example of Christ I remember.
But isn't Christ the one who loved them enough to show them how to overcome it? He rebuked the sinner. He healed the sin. He rebuked the devil from them. He didn't say, let me get down here and just be nice to you. You pulling a homosexual, I'm going to lead this way. He took the spirit away from them so that they can
I
have
just don't
normal
remember
lives.
Jesus talking about transgender folks.
No,
I don't
he
remember
was
that part.
He talked about
so.
sin and stuff like that. For example, homosexuality is due to spiritual trauma. Most of these people hate their mothers and grandmothers because the mother was so angry either during pregnancy or she was mad at the father, hated the father. She turned the father away from them. And the hatred that's in her heart is passed down to the children, and the children are innocent, but the anger of the mother can cause them to resent the mother. And you know that when you hate somebody, you become like what you hate. So they take on the mother's identity, and that's why they feel like a woman. But if they can forgive the mother for what she's done, then that identity can be taken away. It's a false identity that's made at home. Then they could be a man or a woman instead of trying to live this false identity. It's all about forgiving the parents for what they've done. That makes sense? And that's what Christ was about.
A lot that what you said there, I think we have different ideas about. But I appreciate you sharing.
What do you say about that, Ken? You guys are Christian. I'm surprised you don't understand that. Well, I don't know if you are.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't presume to judge your Christianity. I wish you wouldn't judge mine, but I have a sincere question for you as a reverend. You said you said Jesus didn't accept them, and those were your words. We could we could play back the tape, but I'm trying to think of an example where Jesus rejected anybody. Jesus embraced everyone, and to me, that's the walk I want to walk. One of, if in doubt, love and accept. If you're not 100% sure, and I'd be surprised if any of us are 100% sure of much of anything, err on the side of love. That's my Christian philosophy.
Jesus didn't reject the person. He rejected the sin that was in the person. That's why people went on to him, so that they could be healed from the sin. He didn't just accept them as they were. He helped them to overcome. And that's why they knew that about him, that if they could get close to him, that he would set them free. And so that's what I do. I don't reject the person, but I don't accept the sin that's in the person. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Do you agree with that?
No.
You don't? You say that he accepted the sin of the person?
I don't think we are viewing sin in the same way. So
I'm asking, though, in whatever way you might be reviewing it or viewing it, did he accept the sin in the person?
give me an example. What are we talking about?
Do you know what sin is?
Do you know what sin is?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain it for me?
Yeah, I will, but just, you're my guest. Did he accept the sin in the person?
Yeah, he, in some cases, accepted people for who they were, but did not see that as sin. He said to the centurion, your job is to be a soldier. That is who you are. And he accepted both the person and their identity as a soldier.
You're saying that Jesus accepted the sin in the people as well?
I'm not going to play this rhetorical game with you, because I think what you're trying to do is equate homosexuality with sin, and
right now I don't have anything
reject
particular in
that.
my mind, but that's a good example.
Yeah. So no, in that case, I don't think Jesus would define how someone was born as sinful.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a woman who was a prostitute.
Yeah.
And the men had found out that she had slept with all these guys, and they was going to stone her. And Jesus said, let he without sin cast the first stone, right? And everybody put their little rocks down and walked away. But he also said to the woman, go away and sin no more.
Right.
Was Jesus accepting her sin?
I'm glad you gave me a specific example. No, he was not accepting the sin.
So why do you accept the sins of others today then?
Because I don't
As
think,
a man of God.
I don't think prostitution is the same as homosexuality.
Oh, okay. I wasn't thinking of homosexuality. I'm just thinking of sin, period. It doesn't matter what the sin is.
I think
sin is sin.
Yes, but we interpret it differently, and in this one particular example, I think we bring that in stark relief. I think wanton promiscuity is sinful. I don't think being gay is sinful. So when you say sin is sin is sin, I think we disagree on what sins are.
Oh, I want to tell you what I see a man. I know a man is. A man is a male who is returning to his father, returning to God, and loving God with all his heart, soul, and might, along with nothing else. If he wants a family, he gets married, and then the love that is working through him from God, God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. In that state of love, as a son of God, he is the spiritual head of his wife. He protects his wife spiritually from evil and his children, and he also provides for them financially, because he is the Christ over the woman. And the woman loved the man who is the Christ over her. Do you guys agree with that order that came from God?
I recognize that. I'm very familiar with that tradition and that interpretation, but I think they're equally, no. I think
you reject that?
I don't reject it.
But not
I
to
think
agree with it is a rejection.
Not at all. I think it is a choice that some families make, and I can respect that.
But as a son of God, you don't have a choice. Because you represent God.
Well, I believe that one of the things
Isn't that right?
No,
That's
it's
right.
not. One of the things we are imbued with by our Creator is free will. So to say that we don't have a choice is not only fatalistic, but approaching on nihilistic, and I don't choose to live my life
You
that
don't
way.
have a free will,
I do.
and it's not even in the scriptures.
I do.
So do you ever do wrong?
Sure.
And do you will yourself to do wrong? Do you want to do wrong?
Sometimes.
Why?
and I feel
Why do
terrible
you
about it.
sometimes want to do wrong?
Because I'm tempted.
So is it temptation that causes you to do wrong?
Temptation is one of the triggers, but my own frailties and shortcomings and my own choices are what cause me to do wrong.
But it's the temptation that causes you to do wrong.
It's one of the triggers. It's
So
not the
why don't
sole
you
cause.
use your free will to resist the temptation?
I try,
But it doesn't work.
sometimes.
No. If you had a free will, it would work all the time because you will always will yourself to do good.
No, I don't always will
You
myself
like
to
doing
do
wrong?
good. Sometimes, sure,
Oh.
and you do too.
Sometimes,
Sometimes it feels
sometimes it's
good.
good to be
No,
bad.
no.
You never had a beer, Jesse?
I've never had 3
I
Oreos.
don't
You
think
ever
you-
get those Girl Scout cookies in the sleeve, and you know you should just eat the one, but the sleeve, you just eat them all, and you know you shouldn't. Sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes it just feels kind of good to be bad.
You guys made a blog. You decided to start a blog.
Yeah.
Dad versus.
Dad v Mom, but the V has a heart over it.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like it's Dad and Mom arguing, but there's a heart over the V. Yes.
And what's the purpose of the blog?
In the beginning, it was because I do a lot of writing in parenting circles, and a lot of parenting writing is written only by mothers, one part of the story. But most of us are raising kids, moms and dads and children, and wasn't that a story we could tell together?
Do fathers raise kids differently than mothers do?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I tend to be pretty rigid. Mom wants what she wants when she
Yeah,
wants it.
yeah.
With Dad, it's the circus coming to town, and there's a movie, and there's popcorn. That's not all dads, and not all moms, but we certainly have different ways. But I think children need to learn both ways of being loved. They need to learn both rigidity and the circus. And sometimes I'm the circus. You ever seen me try to get my children out of the house to church? There's clown cars all over the place. Get your hair brushed. And we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. So I think that we definitely parent the children different.
Do you believe that we're in a fallen state?
I think all of us have our weaknesses, but I think we also all have our strengths, and at any given time, we can bring those to shine.
So you don't believe we're in a fallen state?
No, I guess I don't.
How about you, Ken?
Well, I look at the world today, and I struggle to remain optimistic as Annmarie. And part of it is a function of what I do and where I go. That would not be an unreasonable spin to put on it when you look at some of these parts of the world. Yeah.
What's the key to a successful marriage?
If there were one answer, I don't think we'd have the divorce rate we do. If you'll indulge me, I'll give you a couple. I think love, trust, and respect are essential. And key to all of those is if you can communicate, you can survive just about anything.
Yeah. And you say, you want to add to that?
I just think
For a successful
whoever you're with, you help him or her be his best self. Sometimes that means we've had to pack up a house we love. I've had to leave my community to help him be his best self, to take a challenge halfway across the country.
Yes.
And I think sometimes to be your best self, that means he's going to tell me no when I wanted the answer to be yes.
What is love?
What is love? Oh, I think it's when I put him ahead of me.
I think Corinthians tells us best.
What's the
but
last part? There is no limit to.
Love's forbearance.
I like knowing that love is just not hating.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
We don't have hate, you have love.
Absolutely.
Did you have fun?
Thank you so much for being brave enough to talk. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ken, did you have fun?
Jury's out. We'll see how the
He
edit
wants
goes.
to see how it's edited.
Yeah, I
probably.
mean, if you've got the guts to put some of the disagreement on camera, I'll love it.
I appreciate what you've done for the country, for all of us. Thank you for that, man. That's so important to me.
It's my honor.
In spite of ourselves, we'll end up sitting on a rainbow. Against all odds, honey, we're the big door prize. Oh, we're gonna spike our noses right off of our faces. There won't be nothing but big old hearts dancing in our eyes. There won't be nothing but big.
Next time on The Fallen State.
I know you make a living on defending the privilege.
Ooh.
It's a true statement. You protect the privilege in order to protect your status. I don't know what America you live in, and I do appreciate the work you've done in the 60s, but you better wake up.
I didn't do any
And
work
with
in the 60s. What do you
just
mean?
said
You just said
marched.
you marched.
With
Martin
Martin
Luther
Luther
King.
King.
After the
aspect of
march,
that.
I started partying.
You know,